Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month will feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here is your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Do you know money touches every area of your life? Cleaning up your relationship with it will make you even more money. Today, our guest is Melissa Ternes. She's a wealth and money coach and speaker. Her unique approach, marrying the woo and the do of money, blends brain and body science with NLP, we'll define that shortly, practical strategies, and your unique money history to unblock your profits. Welcome, Melissa.
I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad all of you are here.
We really appreciate you being here. And so I would like us to start with adding to your bio, but specifically defining NLP for anyone listening that's not familiar with that.
So, super simple definition of NLP is how your words and how they come out really point to what's going on in your unconscious. So it's a very simple definition. And then how we can go back into your unconscious and reprogram the stuff that's the memories that are there to shift what's available for you. So super, super simple definition of it. Lots of technical stuff going on the backside of it. But really it is about looking at how your language patternings then show up in your life. In a way that is either helpful or perhaps unhelpful.
Okay, great. And is there anything more about your bio that you want to share with us? Like, what do you do for work?
What do you do for work? What's fun? So I'm a wealth and money coach, which just means that I work with people from the perspective of the whole person and their money. So looking at it from a physiological perspective, like what's going on in your body, in your nervous system, what's going on from a neurological standpoint, in your brain, in your unconscious. What are the emotions around money that prompt you to, do things with money that you may or may not like? And then looking at what's your unique history with money. And that can include like cultural, that can include family loyalty patterns of how did you grow up with money and how is that impacting you now? So bringing all of that into the money conversation as a whole bodied approach to money, rather than just saying, oh, we'll just spend less and save more, you'll be fine.
Right. Mm-hmm. As you know, our listeners are survivors. And so the guests that we have on our show tend to have some sort of trauma history and or help survivors with recovery and healing. And a lot of times they're the same. Mm-hmm. They have the history and help. Is there a trauma story of your own that you're willing to share with us today?
Certainly there were traumas. And, I look at how I grew up and who I was as a child. Very much looked at everybody around me and like, how do I make everybody okay? And in that process, went through a lot of things for myself. And, some of the things that were most impactful in my journey in that process were, the relationship piece and how was I in relationship with others or not in relationship with others. And, I lost friends. I was kind of awkward. I know no one else was ever been awkward. And I was very much taking on everything that was around me. And from that, empathic, perspective, like I wanted everybody to be okay. And it was a really interesting path from that through different traumas growing up and into adulthood and the traumas that showed up there from being in relationships that weren't healthy for me. And I know no one else has ever been in a relationship that was unhealthy. And I think those are the things to see is it doesn't matter the size of the trauma or the type of the trauma. There's trauma, I think, in everybody's past. And then how that shows up can be interesting.
How did it show up in your financial life? Because it's maybe hard for one to understand, right? Like if didn't you go to school to be an accountant? Like how did you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Nice undergrad accountant, master's in business. And then, so, I really started this work when I woke up one day and I had $75,000 in what I call random things debt, meaning not my mortgage. I didn't have any student loans and I had no car payment. So that's quite a sum to just have of random stuff. Now, meanwhile, at work, I was managing a $50 million budget to the penny. They called me the mean money lady. I would send people back over pennies. And it was just really fascinating to see. I clearly had the skills, but I couldn't do it for myself. So then when we go back into like the relationship piece, well, if I wanted to make someone happy, well, great. Let me get this for you. Let me do this for you. Let me, right. And so like that, making everybody okay and making everybody happy with me then showed up, oh, you want to go out to dinner? Yeah, let's go out to dinner. Oh, you want you. And so it was this people pleasing at a really incredible rate of like, how am I okay in the world and how do I manage this and manage the feelings of people around me, or, what I know, right? This is one of those funny, like what I know that you're thinking, Karen, because I can read minds, right? Right?
Another skill.
That one doesn't work out so well. It's not verified, but so then I wake up one day and I'm like, okay, I have all this debt. There's no one I can talk to. I'm the controller of this company and I am in a personal money mess. And where do you go? And there was so much shame because, like, hey, can you help me with this? I've really screwed this up. And then please don't tell my employer.
Right. Right. Can you help me keep this a secret?
Can you help me keep this a secret? Which is why I share it so openly now. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, my $75,239.92 of random things that you can feel free to talk about, but don't talk about what anybody else said in the room. Like mine's an open book. It's out there. It's, it's everywhere. But it's that opening that up and opening that space up in a way that says, this is more common than you think.
But how did you get past that shame? I want to hear more about that.
So I went in and I studied a program, very common program. It's cut up your credit cards, go through this process. And what I realized, and then I went and was trained in their methodology. And I realized that people were getting out of debt and getting back in. Like they were out, they would cycle back in, out, cycle back in. And, how many times had I done that myself? I'd get a big bonus. I'd pay everything off. And, it's all good. And then cycle back, cycle back. Oh, yeah. Right. And in that, I'm like, there's something else here. There's a key that's missing. I don't know what it is, but there's a key that's missing. And in that, I started studying, neurology, physiology, what's going on in your nervous system? Like what's your physicality? How is all of that playing into the choices? How is how you grew up playing into all the choices, right? Generationally, what are the patterns? Culturally, what are the patterns? And really looking at, the energetics of it, the emotions of it, the physiology, the neurology, and bringing all that in. And it's like, oh, this is it. This is where I really get to see that, my brain and body were functioning in a way to keep me safe. Well, and who am I to fight millions of years of my body being perfected? to keep me safe with, like years in college. Great. I got 7 years in college, and that's going to be like competitive against like all of this that is so fine tuned to keep me safe. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then as I worked with people, I realized that it's really common. I used to drive down the street and say, I just want to know what their numbers are, right? Like, or I would meet somebody, and the thing that would go through my mind is like, I just want to know, like, how much comes into their household and what's it going out for? And what does all that look like? Because I would see things, and this is the, comparing someone's outside to your inside, but I would see things and I'm like, okay, but that just doesn't add up. Like, and then as I worked with people, I realized that, this is so common. And if everybody were to like show what was going on, we wouldn't, it would be like, oh yeah, this is like everybody.
Yeah. When we talked earlier, you kind of reminded me that how we manage money is sort of how we manage weight. Like for trauma survivors, there's a similar dance. Can you share more about that?
Yes. So when we get into like basic money, they say spend less and save more. Great. And that's a perfect theory. Like if only we could. And it's very similar to eat less and exercise more. And when we look at eat less and exercise more, there's a $285 billion industry behind that says it doesn't work. So we don't have businesses that are, at $285 billion when something's working. So when we look at just the oversimplification of spend less and save more, we're not bringing in everything else that's going on. It's like, oh yes, spend less, save more. I call it an 800 calorie yo-yo diet for your money. And we know what happens on a yo-yo diet. It works. And then when it stops working, we eat everything. And we would have been better off not to have deprived and restricted ourselves all along than to go in the like, oh, I'm going to go on a diet tomorrow, right? I'm going to start, saving money tomorrow, right? I'm going to go on a diet tomorrow. Okay, well, let me eat everything. Oh, let me buy these couple of things because I'm not going to be able to buy them later. And then, right? And if you just not bought the things or not had the, the big binge before you went on the diet, you would have been at much more of an even keel and something that doesn't really set off the safety alarm in your body. It's really fascinating when we start looking at, yes, these things work in theory, but it's in a person's ability to actually put those theories into action.
Yeah, perfectly said. Yeah. I know I can say easily that I've been the person that's lost 40 pounds, gained it back, lost it again, the whole yo-yo. And my bank account could show a similar story. So it is very fascinating. Now, it sounds like when you were the Mean Money Lady, you were a bit rigid. And how did you get more? Because I don't see you as a rigid person now. I see you as fun and cool to hang out with. So how did that happen?
Well, and I was very, very rigid, very controlled, very much, no, your budget was this and you went 1 penny over. Right. And what I realized is that in that dance of being so rigid, like I had no fun. Like I was in this box of control and I had to control everything. I had to plan everything out. And there was so much mental churn. And when I started realizing, okay, all of these are coping mechanisms. It's all a way that I'm coping with, like, how do I make sure everything is safe? Everything is okay. So now when I step back and look at that version of myself, I'm like, oh, wow, she was something to deal with. And, stepping into fun is a place where I can play and I can I can have grace for other people. And the thing that I realized in all of that is the shame that I felt, uncovering that, I didn't really have the ability to do anything different based on the things that, based on my life up to that point. I didn't really have the skills to do anything different. And then it's like, oh, wait, this is something that's so common. We can talk about it. We could put it out there. And I like to joke a lot, and I think when we get to money and we start talking about money, people when I start talking about, I can sometimes feel the room suck in, oh, she just said the M word. She's going to talk about money. Oh, and it can be fun. I mean, and when I look back at the things I did with money, I'm like, that's really comical. That's something else there. And being able to laugh about it starts us from a place where, okay, yeah, it's there. I did it. And now what? And
yeah, I love that you have found a way to make it fun. One of my messages to survivors is a lot of us had robbed childhoods because of the traumas we went through, and we didn't get to play or didn't get to play freely or have fun. So damn it, we got to make up for that now. And whenever you have an opportunity to have some fun and play, I really think that can be quite healing.
And I think it's important in that to make sure that it's something that you actually enjoy. Because from that robbed childhood, are we just picking up the message of this is the way that we go out and have fun? And have you checked in with yourself to say, is this really fun to me? Because I would have done things that were quote unquote fun back in the mean money lady days. But was I really having fun, or was it just, this is what you do? This is what people do to have fun. And now it's like, oh, do you know what's fun to me? Occasionally it's randomly going and planting bulbs in the yard. Okay. I am not a yard person. I do not like to sweat. I don't want to be hot. If there's not air conditioning, I'm not in over a certain temperature, but that's fun to me. And so I think it becomes this space of how do we define fun for ourselves and step into that? This conversation with you, completely fun.
Right? I agree. And fun often doesn't even cost any money if we're real. My girlfriends visited recently. One was from Boston and one lives in DC, and they came over and we just chit-chatted, and it was so fun to catch up with them and laugh and joke and reminisce. So yeah.
And I think those are the important parts to see with how we're being marketed to right now is, marketing would say, no, you have to go, on this elaborate vacation to have fun. And what you realized is, hey, look, we can just get together and we're fun together.
We really
can have a lot of fun together. We can have a lot of fun together. And that, I can tell from the smile on your face, how much fun you had. It was a great time. So seeing what's fun to you is important.
Absolutely. So what have you done with your knowledge and your life experiences? Have you published anything at this point?
So I have a book. It's called The Aligned Money Life Activator. And it is part planner. So it will help you plan out the next 13 weeks. What would you like to have more of in your life? What kind of person would you like to be more of? How do you want to look at money and how those lay out? And then it's part calendar. So it lays out, what's going on for the week. And then it's part journal, where we start to look at what were your money wins? What did you ask for? I think that's a big one, especially in trauma circles. What were your asks, and what answers did you get? So did you ask, oh, I really want a peanut butter and jelly. Great. That could be your ask. did you ask for someone to buy your product? That could be your ask. And then in your answers, maybe it's from 3 days ago that you asked something. Oh, someone brought me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or someone, signed up for my program, whatever those are, but really keeping track of, what are you doing that's new and different, right? To get us out of this, oh, I drive to the grocery store the same way every day. So how do I go a different route, go to a different grocery store, which is like, oh, would you go to a different grocery store? But again, how do you start to bring new things in? And especially in the trauma world, how do you, there's safety in the same grocery store. I know where everything is. I know where I park. And so little things, these little baby steps of, can I drive to the grocery store a different way? Can I park in a different section of the parking lot? Right. Again, to begin to see that things can be different. We can try different things, and it becomes to pattern in as safety. Great. It's okay to go to a different grocery store.
Well, I'm going to commit to purchasing this planner calendar after our call. It sounds amazing. I love the section on what have you asked for what you want. Mm-hmm. I really firmly believe that's an eye opener to start asking for what you want, because a lot of times we expect people to guess, and then we get resentful when they can't read our mind, or we hide in the darkness. That visibility, I have too much shame. I think you mentioned when we talked earlier today about not being visible in your household as a child, if there's a parents drinking, how that could be unsafe. And so when we go to ask for stuff, we don't want to be seen. Any comments about that?
Because being seen, growing up in an alcoholic home, I have a client who she was trying to market herself. And when we got down to why she wasn't doing what she was supposed to do, right? Somebody tells you have to go out and do this, and when we got down into that, well, she grew up in an alcoholic home. Well, when her dad came home, she went and hid because it wasn't safe. Well, to ask that person to then step out, market yourself, be seen everywhere, what's happening in her brain and body is that's not safe. So no matter how much you tell somebody or shame them into it or guilt them into it, what's going on inside is that's not safe. So even if they do make it out, they don't show up as their normal self. And people can read that. You may be there, but you're like, hi, how are you? My name is, right? And so when you can repattern that into, it's safe to be visible. You're not in that situation anymore. Working that into the neurology, the unconscious, the physiology means that when it's time to market your business, you can take these baby steps. You can take the baby step of, okay, well, I can go meet with one person. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm comfortable meeting with one person. Now I can meet with 2 people at a time. Now I can meet with 3 people at a time. Now I can, again, in the asks and answers, I can, talk to somebody. Is that something you're interested in? So you just begin taking these baby steps that help to reprogram the safety part that says it's okay. And that's where you can really, you get to take that next step and not feel controlled and not feel shamed when you're not doing what, whether it's a coach or a friend or whatever is telling you need to go do, looking at what's underneath it. Because you could have told her for days on end, and she agreed, you need to go out and network and market yourself and, be more visible. It's something you agree with, which then makes it only all the more frustrating when you're not doing it, right? I know this is what I'm supposed to do, but I am doing the opposite. And working through both of those, it can be really frustrating because you just don't know. And then once you start to understand, oh, now I understand why that is a challenge for me. and let's go do some work on that.
Beautiful. You know, a little bird told me that you are perhaps writing a book. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. And it is one that I have put off writing. And it's one that really needs to be out there in the world, talking about money from this perspective. Money from the perspective of what's the whole body, whole person experience with money. And that, to me, is really exciting because it's not work that's out there right now, of looking at what are all the things that go into your money history, into how you are with money now, and looking at it from the perspective of your dreams, your values, your priorities, and your money are kind of all floating in a circle. And the closer those are together, the more in alignment you are. And then your words, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all amplify that. But all of that is kind of swimming in the soup of your beliefs. So looking at, these beliefs, which, kind of like we talked about, it's not safe to be visible, how you then work through all of those to end up where you want to be, living the life you want to live, and really enjoying it. So yes, that book is mid-2024. And yes, I have some people that have been pushing me and really pushing me and really pushing me in only the most loving, best ways.
I need this book, and my audience needs this book, Melissa.
Oh, no pressure there. and now we have a whole nother group of people that needs this from you. I love it.
I want you to have fun writing it.
And it's interesting. I do have fun when I get in the zone and I'm working on it. And it's so funny because I always told people, and this was one of my limiting beliefs, I'm a numbers person, not an English person. Right. And English was just that subject in school that I never did well in. And so I had that belief running of like, oh yeah, I'm a numbers person. I'm a math person. I'm a science person. And so it's fascinating to see that coming up and working through the fun part of that.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of limited beliefs we put on ourselves. I used to do something similar where I truly believed I wasn't creative. I don't know, maybe I drew stick people wrong in kindergarten. I just had this mindset forever. And it was 2020, no, maybe a little bit before that, 2018, 2019, before I actually broke that limited belief. And it's been incredibly freeing and fun just to learn how to create. And when you're creative, the sky's the limit on what you can do. So I'm happy I broke through that. And I'm happy that you're breaking through that you're writing, because I know this book is going to be amazing.
It's going to be a lot of fun. That's for sure. It will be a lot of fun. And it will be the money book that you laugh with.
And there's always editors for any grammar.
It's so funny. I joke. I'm like, I could talk about this all day long. Like,
yes.
We'll just start talking about it and record it and then clean it up.
Perfect. Yeah. So please let us know when the book is being published so we can add it to the show notes for anybody that's listening in our future.
Yes, most definitely.
As you know, from listening to other podcasts, one of my favorite questions is asking, what are you reading, or what's been a book that's been helpful in your healing journey?
And I absolutely love this book. It's called Treating Trauma and Addiction with the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model by Jan Winhall. It is, so it's I would call it a slow read in that it's really deep material, but it's absolutely fascinating. I think she is bringing into the trauma and addiction world something that's never been there before, and talking about it in a way that is very much body centered and from very much of a, like, what's going on for you internally rather than from a disease model. And it is just fascinating work. The polyvagal model is nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and she's pairing that with the felt sense. And it's incredible work. That's the read I'm reading right now. Right up there, I have like a whole shelf full of books. So I know we could do this one and this one and this one and this one and this one.
I love books.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm glad that you mentioned this one in particular. I'm familiar with the author, the therapist, but I have not read this book yet. So I'm adding it to my to be read list. But I just want to take a second to do a little bit of teaching for anyone that's not familiar with the polyvagal theory. So this is the sensory motor type of teaching, and we all have what's called a window of tolerance. And when we are living in our window of tolerance, we're living with regulated emotions, like we feel kind of in control. Mm-hmm. What's true for trauma survivors, we are often outside of that window. We're either hyper aroused, that's like that panic attack, that restlessness, that fear, not feeling safe, that range. And then below the window tolerance is hypoarousal. That's when we feel defeated, hopeless. That's the mess part. We just can't get it together. We're either oversleeping or can't sleep. And so our goal as survivors is to learn how to get into that window. And there's lots of exercises to help us with that. But the first step is understanding, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this book is one of those ways to help you understand, like, okay, how do I get more regulated? What's going on with my nervous system? How can I fix that? Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add to that, Melissa?
Well, and I think it's just an incredible way to be present with yourself in that, like, how do you get in that window of tolerance and knowing, and again, I think so much of it is being aware, hey, this is outside my window of tolerance. And even if we can just get that basic of a like, look at this, I'm outside my window of tolerance. So what, and just identifying it as, wow, this situation is outside my window of tolerance, giving words to what's going on. And then, okay, great. What's the next step? How do I, do breath work to come, to just center myself back in? What are the steps that I need to take? Do I need to go see a therapist to walk through, what part of this needs that type of work? What part of this needs breath work? What part of this needs, me to be able to say more of like what I want, right? That asking for what you want. What parts of this are regulated by different parts of my world, and how do I do something different? But I think in all of it, it is, wow, that's outside my window of tolerance. And if that is the meat of what is learned in this podcast, what a gift.
Is being outside of our window of tolerance our fault?
No. Right. And this is one of my very favorite things is, whatever we've done with money, or for that matter, anything else, what's gone on in our world is not our fault, but it's 100% our responsibility to take it on and have a different outcome. And I think that's it. Not your fault, right? How you grew up with money, that's the family you were born into. Okay, great. Those are the things that went on. That's the street you lived on. But then looking at it and saying, this is 100% my responsibility to have a different life if that's not what I would prefer. So again, what's above and beyond your window of tolerance is not your fault. But then how do you go in and take responsibility for doing something different, for having it be different? And I think that's something that you and I both resonate very strongly on is, not your fault, right? Whatever the trauma was that happened, not your fault. But then what are you going to do to have the life you want to have?
And we can see this as painstaking work, because in a lot of ways it is, or we can see it as very empowering, because the only thing we can control in this world is our own actions. So taking those steps, even little baby steps for healing, is very empowering. And I shared with Melissa, we both believe in this taking responsibility thing. I actually have a virtual membership for survivors where we hold each other accountable for healing, taking those baby steps in our foundational healing, our childhood, taking baby steps in our relationships with others and healing those, and then also planning our future. The future we want for ourselves, we can have. We just have to take those steps.
And I think it's that's hearing that and knowing that you're not alone in any of it. You're not the only one that has money stuff going on. You're not the only one that has trauma in your past. Yours is unique to you. But knowing that you're not alone, I think is huge in that, like, great, I'm taking responsibility. Karen, you're taking responsibility. Great, let's go take responsibility. Especially in, I bet the people in your community get so much benefit from just being in community with other survivors.
Absolutely. Melissa, tell us more about what you offer and how that can help survivors.
So I have group programs, I have self-study courses, and I do private one-on-one work where we really get into what's underneath what's going on with money for you. So really fun group course. It's 8 weeks. We get into your dream, your values, your priorities, and your money, and how all of those are floating in the soup of your beliefs and how to untangle some of those things. Again, looking at how do you take responsibility for ending up where you want to end up. So that's a lot of fun. It's called Unblock Your Profits. And it's for business owners. It's for individuals. It's for anybody who's really looking to see what's underneath the gee, this is going on. I don't think I like the $75,000 of random things debt. Or conversely, I'm a business owner and I'm trying to raise my rates and I'm finding that to be difficult. What's going on underneath that? And so it is kind of it's an introduction to figuring out what's under there. And then the private work I do is where we really get in and what's there for you personally. That's not necessarily for the masses to hear of what's going on, and working through that so that you can really enjoy the life that you have.
That sounds beautiful. And how do people find you if they want to work with you?
So masteryourmoneynow.com. And if you want to chat with me, up in the right-hand corner, the top right-hand corner, there's a button where we can hop on a call. We can just chat. Love chatting about money, as is obvious. We can chat about that, about what your history is and how that may be impacting what you've got going on. There are all sorts of quizzes there that you can take. There are self-study courses. There are the next events coming up. So again, masteryourmoneynow.com, and you can find all the stuff. You can connect with me, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. And for those of you listening while you're driving, I will have her website in the show notes, masteryourmoneynow.com. What a beautiful title.
Thank you.
Of your company. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, any parting last words of wisdom for our audience?
I would just say you're not alone. That's, I think, the thing for everyone to remember, that no matter what you have going on from any perspective, you're not alone. And it's really important to reach out and find the person that can help you walk through whatever your next stage is. And that's, maybe that's Karen's group, or, looking at some of the other people she's had on her podcast, because she's had some incredible guests. So again, you're not alone, and find the person who's right for your next step.
And please check out Melissa and the work that she's doing. It's definitely a blessing, the services you offer. So thanks for being here today, Melissa.
Thank you. And thanks to all the listeners who are listening. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, HealThriveDream.com.